All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler. TNHoller.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We also have hollers hollering all across the state thanks to your support. We really do appreciate it. Your small dollar monthly donations make that all possible. Chip in a few bucks a month and get one of these sweet holler hats like the one I'm wearing. Before we get started here, shout out to Abby Rubenfeld. If you need a lawyer, use Abby. If you're buying or selling a home, Elisa Parker, do it through her. And if you need jewelry, AJ Martin is where you should go. We appreciate them supporting us. All right, wanted to hop on here and talk to you guys about that Van Jones CNN special on Tennessee last night. I'm assuming a lot of you watched it. It was an hour long and it focused on Tennessee. It touched on a lot of the issues that we talk about here all the time. And it featured a lot of the people that if you follow the Holler, you've definitely seen those people. Most of the people that were in that special have been on the Holler in various forms. You had Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, the Covenant Moms. You had activist Odessa Kelly. You had all kinds of legislators and people that were Gino Bolso, Bully Bolso was on there. So these are faces that you've seen and that you probably knew about if you're following us. We knew this was coming. I had heard that Van Jones was in town talking to these people a while back. We knew there was going to be a special about it. And just so you guys know, I can see your comments. So comment along. Let me know that you've seen it if you've seen it. My takeaway was a little mixed, I gotta say. On the one hand, I'm glad that Van Jones shined a light on what's going on in Tennessee, talked about some of the things that we try to talk about all the time, amplified voices that we try to amplify all the time. I think it was good to have that happen, but there have been some concerns that I share that first of all, he called it the whole story, or the show is called The Whole Story, and it most certainly was not the whole story. So let's get that out of the way right up front because, what Van tends to do is to look for common ground, which, great, noble venture. I think it is important to be thinking about where we can find common ground in this world, especially in the state where, things have gone pretty far to the extreme right. And some people want to say, well, it's the extreme left in other states. Well, we're the Tennessee Holler. We focus on Tennessee. And here in Tennessee, we're pretty far off the deep end to the right. And so to come here and be like, all right, well, let's find some common ground. And, that's all fine and good. But it felt like there was a effort made to sort of equate Jones, Pearson, Gloria, the people that are fighting for justice every day to the people on the other side, like the Sumner County Constitutional Republicans and Representative Gino Bolso, as though those are sort of counterweights to this conversation. And I think if you're going to try to do that, that's a pretty damaging position to take. And so I wake up today feeling like, you know what? I'm glad to see all these people featured on this show. I'm glad CNN sort of let people know how far things have gone in Tennessee, but to act like, well, it's just two sides of the same coin, Bolso over here and Matt Show from the Sumner County Republicans over here, and then Pearson and Jones over there. That seems not fair and kind of lazy, honestly. And to feature Gino Bolso, I mean, one of the voices that was featured in this thing was Gino Bolso. Like he was like the main right-wing voice. And, he self-described himself as an extreme conservative. But what it didn't do at all was talk about the things that Bolso has done, which make him more than just an extreme conservative. It makes him a radical. I mean, he's got a bill today on the House floor to do away with checks and balances when it comes to the rules in the legislature. He has attacked trans people, trans kids, mothers of trans kids. He has he has a bill to ban the pride flag in schools that protects the Confederate flag. So, I mean, if you're going to talk about this guy and amplify this guy, it seems like you have to do the work to actually explain who he is and what he has done. And I know you only have an hour, but it would have taken all of 1 minute to do that, or at least have somebody talk about that, which, some people have said, well, why wasn't the holler on there? I appreciate some people saying that. You can't have everyone on there. I don't fault Van Jones for not talking to us, reaching out to us. It's fine. There were other people on there that said a lot of the things that we would have said, like the Justins and Odessa, and the point came across. I think they also used our audio from the leaked caucus that we posted last year. So, look, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about why I think it was kind of a miss, and I'm also curious to hear what you all think about whether or not it was useful ultimately to have a national hour-long show about Tennessee that kind of both sides did a little bit in a way that I think isn't great. We've seen a couple of reactions from people that made the same point. This was Holly saying that he let Matt Schoaf off the hook, a fluff piece on the SCCR. They literally called our director of schools a Russian asset, and that's one of the least nasty things they've done. Shocked he compared Schoaf to the Justins. So for those who don't know, the Sumner County Constitutional Republicans is like an extreme right-wing arm of the Republican Party that is in Sumner County, and obviously is attacking librarians, and they're doing all these very radical things. For instance, they robbed Brenda Dotson of a tied election. Brenda Dotson was like the one Democrat, a black woman in Sumner County. Her election for county commission ended in a tie. And instead of having a runoff, they just said, you lost, and gave it to the Republican. Like, that's not in the report. And you're sitting there and you're talking to Matt Schoaf and portraying him as some, reasonable man. And okay, like, if you want to do that, I get it. But it seems like you got to at least do the work to explain why people think those guys are so radical. And that didn't really happen. And so I'm not the only one feeling this way. I see Gloria had a similar response. She said he almost seemed to understand what was happening while talking to the Justins before he started with the both sides are the same nonsense. No, one side went to the well to address grieving families. The other beat cops with flagpoles and threatened to kill politicians. So Gloria, I guess, woke up, or that was last night. She felt like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't that helpful to do that, to parachute in, have this hour-long special, say, hey, we need to find some common ground. And this guy's just like the Justins. And then, oh, I guess my shirt's a little open. My wife would tell me, so I'm going to close that. And have it be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It is not that. And if that was the takeaway from that hour-long special, then that's pretty damaging. But if the takeaway was, you know what, things are pretty fucked up here in Tennessee, then I think that's important for people to know. That's obviously the message that we're trying to get out there every day. Amber says, I love you. Best reporting in politics, inspiring to citizens to be involved every day. Amber, this is really heartwarming to hear. Really appreciate that. We try to tell people what's going on. We try to be in their faces. I know some of you saw us not get let into the Lieutenant Governor McNally press conference last week. Sexton doesn't let us in. We're still going to keep going, but I do think it's important that people know that we are being kept out of a lot of these press conferences, which means that you're being kept out because those are not live streamed anywhere. All you end up seeing are the 10 to 15 second snippets on local news broadcasts. And because we don't see what's going on in there, you don't see what's going on in there. And I think it's wrong. Some people have encouraged us to sue over it, and we may end up doing that. One thing that I was going to try to do here, I don't know if we'll be able to do it, but I'm going to try to do it. And if any of you take me up on it, we'll do our best to answer some phone calls. That's what we're going to try to do here is answer some phone calls. If you guys want to try to call in right now to let me know what you thought from last night, give me a call at this number 615-395-2016. 615-395-2016. If you call that right now, I will try to bring your audio in. I've tried this once before. It didn't work out great. But if you do it right now, you can call in, and I want to hear what you thought about the Van Jones special last night. If you thought it was ultimately useful for Tennessee to have that happen, or if the both sidesism kind of overrode its usefulness. I thought there was important stuff. Odessa, it was great to see Odessa speak up. It was great to see the Covenant moms talking about how they are Republicans and conservatives and they want gun safety laws and they're not being listened to. It was good to see Justin and Justin. There were a lot. Miriam was on there. There were a lot of faces on there that were great to see on a national broadcast. But then he said things like, you've got the Justins over here and the constitutional conservative Republicans over here. And it's like, not great. And then you've got Bulso sort of seeming reasonable in the way that he was presented, which we all know that Bulso is not reasonable. So Christine says, this Van Jones thing sounds like the reason I dropped cable. It might be that. It might be that. Okay, we've got a call. We're going to try to do this. Let's see what happens here. Ready? Hello? Yes. Okay. Before you start talking, I want to know, can folks who are watching hear the man on the phone right now? Tell me if you can hear him. Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Damn it. I hear you. Can anybody hear him? No, you cannot hear him. Damn. All right. I'm sorry. I still haven't figured out this phone call thing. I'm going to figure it out at some point. Carol Frazier here from Moms Demand Action. Good to see you guys. Renee says, we depend on you for real news. Keep going. Whoever just called in, I am very sorry that I couldn't get that working. I'm really trying to get that working. It's the second time that I've failed. So one day I will figure that out because I really, really do want to hear what you guys have to say about this stuff. Again, the Van Jones thing happened last night. It's called The Whole Story. It is definitely not the whole story. For sure, that much I can tell you. It is not the whole story. But was it potentially a good thing that it happened, or was it just, more both sidesism? That's kind of what I'm curious to know from you guys. Definitely message us to let us know how you feel about that. I don't. Okay, he said, I just called in. I just want to say I don't only think it was problematic, but dangerous. Yeah. Look, you are not the only one who believes that. I've been hearing that from people. And, I think on some level, you're right that it was dangerous. It was potentially, you know, something that sets us back because what you've got is Bulso and Matt Schoaf presented as reasonable human beings. And, from where I'm sitting, that's simply not the case. So I would be curious to hear more about why you think it was dangerous. And, I definitely think you're not going to be alone in feeling that way. There are a lot of people who are messaging us saying that, but then you've got Carol saying it was really important people see at least a glimpse of what's going on here. So, the fact that they chose to focus on Tennessee, the fact that, he spent some time here, more amplification of the Justins, I think all that's positive. It's just on balance, does that outweigh, equating them with Schoaf and Bulso and all the other people? I thought it started well and then went soft with the emotional. I'm having mixed feelings type self-reflection. Overall, I felt he tried to balance both sides and negated his own introduction about the alert on Tennessee politics. Yeah, I agree. Like for the first 20, 25 minutes, I was sitting there going, oh, good. This is kind of exactly what we need. This is going to be, Van Jones talking about how messed up things are here. He actually wrote a piece in text to promote this show basically saying it was worse than I thought. And I thought that was a great headline. And like, that's what needed to be said. And then, as you're talking about here, when he got to like the 45-minute or half hour mark, he started to, you know, go soft and both sides it. Uh, Carol says, I'm glad they showed Bolso for the psychopathic autocrat he is. They are saying everything out loud that people need to know. I just don't think that's how he came across last night, honestly, Carol. Like, that's my issue is, you know, we know what he is. He's a guy who, you know, he ducked the Williamson County School Board meeting. He was the only Williamson County rep that wouldn't meet with them. He's suing the Williamson County School Board. He says we need values from the 1700s. None of that was in there. It was just, oh, here's the other side of the coin, self-described extreme conservative, but no details about what he's actually doing. He should have let people know, says Sharon, about how representatives are not allowed to speak in the legislature. We have no representation. It was glossed over last night. 100% true. Absolutely right. He did not talk about how their mics were being cut. He did not talk about, you know, a lot of the various ways that they clamp down on dissent, the way, you know, we don't really even get to hear the conversation because, like, for instance, last week with the Brian Ritchie constitutional amendment about expulsions, Pearson was on the committee and excuse me, Jake McCalman cut off debate before any debate happened on that. So Carlos, who comes on here and yells at me a lot, says he was very fair and balanced. So take that with a grain of salt. But I'm sure some people do believe that. And, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe he was fair and balanced. I tend to lean towards that it was a little too down the middle. And I think it's important to make a distinction between fair and balanced and down the middle. Fair and balanced isn't always down the middle. It's like Christian Amanpour says, be truthful, not neutral. The truth isn't always in the middle. You know, saying, oh, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That's not always the truth. And in Tennessee, that is not the truth. And so if that's what you got from this broadcast, I think that is problematic. Tony says, I'm in East Nashville. The written article barely mentions the Justins. Yes, that's true. And I think that is an important point to make. Nikki says they've been trying to silence the Justins for a minute. They do it every day. Nikki, you're absolutely right about that. Carol says you want to see a part 2. I would hope that would happen, you know, a follow-up. Honestly, I think that one of the things that we've tried to do and sort of behind the scenes is I've kind of been pitching a follow doc of the Tennessee 3 where it would be kind of like this, but just focused on them, kind of like the circus from Showtime, but just focused on the Tennessee 3 where we follow them every single week and watch them throughout the legislature and as they go about their business. I think that would be useful and helpful and informative. Tony says it's unfortunate. Let's see. Christine says they sent him out to do that. We must be worried about so many people around the country having an understanding like we do about what's happening here. One of his sort of bottom line thoughts that he had was if the rest of the country ends up in a one-party system like ours, then we're going to be in trouble. And I think that kind of is the main point of everything that we do. I know Justin Jones talks about it all the time, is the reason that other people in other states should be paying attention to what's happening in Tennessee is because if they get away with it here, it's coming your way next. We are the tip of the spear, culturally speaking. We may not be a swing state, but we are sort of a breeding ground for bad ideas and a theocracy, frankly. And so we then export that to the rest of the country. We're seeing it right now. Speaker Mike Johnson, that guy is run of the mill here in Tennessee. Like, we're used to that here. And now you've got a speaker that's like what we've had here. And nobody in Tennessee is like, whoa, that guy, never seen anything like that before. Like, the rest of the country is like, wow, Mike Johnson, what a radical. Here, we're like, literally every Republican in Tennessee is exactly like that. So Tony says, I'd watch that program you just pitched. I know I have a sizzle reel. Carol says, great idea. We made it. We shot it during the special session. We sent it to a few places and haven't really got a bite yet. I think it would be great. And so we'll keep looking for a home for it. And I do think it would be cool to have that exist and sort of have like a weekly, following Justin and Gloria through their business. I think that would be really good. Watching the Tennessee 3 24/7 would be like attending an infinite pro Hamas rally. Yes, that's what Carlos believes. He's on here saying garbage like that all the time. No, that's nonsense and shame on you. Just Under Reality, who just called in, and again, I'm sorry I couldn't take your call. I will get this figured out. I'll try it again next time. Says, why is that a problem? He never said, right. That's exactly right. So he kind of didn't go the next extra mile and say why it would be such a problem for the one party. I mean, he kind of did. He's saying that we don't listen to each other, but that's not the only reason. It's like, where does that lead? Like, where do you end up when you don't listen to each other, when you have a one-party state, when you're gerrymandered all to hell? And we're on our way there. We see where we end up is legislation like forcing raped little girls to carry to term, or banning the truth, or attacking LGBTQ people every single day. So we are in that place in Tennessee. And I think that needed more elaboration. If you're going to talk about why things are so horrible when you have a one party system, you need to talk about the people that are getting hurt, put a face on it. I think he could have mentioned Allie Phillips, who had to flee Tennessee because of the draconian abortion ban that we have here and is now running for office. We talked about the gun law stuff. Yes. So that's one thing that he did talk about, but there's more going on here than just that. Am I aware of the reparations bill Pearson proposed for descendants of slavery? Pearson has a bunch of important bills. Most of them probably will never even get heard or discussed. There was just a reparations bill that Reagan is pushing now to be aware of. His bill bans local governments, cities, from even studying reparations. So reparations is not something that's going to pass through this state. And they're even banning the ability to even study it at a local level, which, they talk about how pro-freedom they are. That is not pro-freedom by any stretch of the imagination. Carol says, I was at a meeting, or Sharon says, I was at a meeting in Sexton County. Has bragged about that every elected office was held by a Republican. One party equals communism. That's not wrong necessarily. I mean, I don't know if I go far as to say it's communism. There are differences, but it is sort of cultish, and we are in a place where dissent is being stifled every single day. And we're the recipients of it also. I mean, we posted a video last week where we were about to walk into a Governor McNally press conference, and they banned us from it. They banned us from Sexton's press conferences. And this isn't about us. This is about, the whole of silencing dissent. But for them not to let us in and say we're not reporters, say we're not journalists, like, that feels wrong to me. And it even feels wrong to the Tennessee Conservative News Outlet, which is a pretty far right outlet. They posted that they agree with us. And like I've said, if it was happening to them, I would stand with them too. And, I go to these press conferences with Governor Lee. I ask my question. I don't, disrupt it. I don't kick and scream. If he doesn't call on me, I'll yell at him afterward. But, for Lieutenant Governor McNally not to let me in, that's doesn't seem right. We've been here longer than a lot of the outlets. Our reach is bigger than some of them. And, for them to just decide they don't like what we have to say and not let us in, that doesn't feel very American. Fox News is in the White House press corps. OANN was in there at one point. Like, we don't lie. So I think if you care about the truth and access and democracy, that you should have our back on that. And I'm disappointed with the rest of the media because they haven't said much about it, if anything at all. And so, that feels wrong to me. And I appreciated G.A. Hardaway standing up for us at their press conference last week. We posted that video. You should check it out. I have another video of asking McNally about it I might post today. let's see what else you guys saying. Thank you, Carol, for saying that. Trisha says, shame on the Democratic Party for abandoning counties. I'm in Bradley County and am starting the fight for Democrats on the ballot. Definitely in rural parts of the state, there isn't a ton of activity with Democrats. A lot of the rural parts don't even have candidates. So, that is a problem. We do need people to be showing up, and gerrymandering is a huge issue also. Christy says Republicans are threatened by Jones and Pearson. They absolutely are. Further to the point of the press conferences, one of the reasons that one of the ways that we have no access is Speaker Sexton doesn't let us into his press conference every week. And because of that, the Justins started attending and videoing their Sexton press conference on the House floor. So once Sexton saw them doing that, he has now moved his press conference into a small office with a closed door. So the Justins can't go, I can't go, and you guys then can't go as a result. So, to me, that's pretty weak of Sexton to move his press conference into a closet, basically, to keep the Justins out. They weren't disrupting. They were just watching, recording. It's supposed to be a public press conference. This is the Speaker of the House. You guys should know what he's saying. The fact that there's no live stream of that, it's really not cool. If there was a live stream, like a pool camera, I wouldn't even care that much. I would like to be there to ask a question, but they don't even let us see what's going on there. That seems wrong. Just Under Reality says, did anyone else get the impression Van was blaming the Democratic voters for the Democratic Party's failing? There was maybe a little bit of that in his talks with Hendrell, who's another name I should mention, who was on there, the party chair. It's tough to know the chicken and the egg there about, the Democratic Party versus Democratic voters, and, which is to blame, where does that spiral start? Obviously, I think the party could be stronger. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But it does start with feeling like people have, there's a fight to be fought. And so I think both things can be true at the same time, that, Democratic voters, obviously in Tennessee, hopefully they will feel more invigorated this time around with Dobbs having happened, the expulsions having happened, Gloria running a statewide campaign that they can hopefully get excited about. So, the rising tide lifts all boats, so to speak. And when that happens, maybe the party will have more resources, but the party doesn't have a ton of resources, just speaking frankly. And when I ran for Congress, what I felt very acutely was, the party is the county parties. The county parties are where the rubber meets the road. The state party can only do so much. I mean, they can spend in some competitive races and focus on some races, but at the end of the day, the county parties are the parties that know their districts, they know the people, they know where there's ground to be gained. And so I think if you're going to, support Democrats and get involved, you got to really tie in with your county party, especially in rural parts of the state, and get involved and help lift that up and help them grow. And also with the young people in the state. I mean, the young Dems, high school Dems, I think they're getting more active, and that's good. Jane, a good friend, says, so disappointed in the doc. If I did not watch the General Assembly live stream in person and the Tennessee Holler, I would think the Justins are on overkill. Yeah, I think that's probably true, and again, I think we need to look at this from a perspective of, if this was the only thing you knew about Tennessee politics, if you just watched that show and that's all you knew, and you guys are obviously dialed in because you're on the Holler, you're talking to me, so a lot of what's going on here more than 100% of the country. So if all you knew was that hour that you watched and you were like, oh, let's see what's going on in Tennessee, what would your takeaway be? I think your takeaway would be that it's a one-party Republican state that is pretty extreme. But because he put a face on Bolso and Schoaf the way he did, without really giving context for who they are, what they stand for, I think you might not be as alarmed about that one-party state as you probably need to be, not only for what it means for Tennessee, but what it means for where this country is headed. And so in that way, I think it was probably ultimately a disservice to Tennessee. I'm glad that it amplified a lot of the voices that we see here every single day, but I think it needed to do more work to really put in context the radical Republican legislature and governor and state that we are currently living under and what it really means. So I think there's another special to be done about all that that isn't just, Van Jones trying to find common ground where in many cases there's not a lot to be found if we're being honest about it. Anyway, that's my take on it. Thanks for joining us. Keep following the holler, and we'll see you next time.